3 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. We're in downtown Columbia. Wherever you are, thank you for choosing to be with us for a little bit today. Our good friend John Whittle makes his first appearance of 2025. It's been a while.
Stuff.
Been a while. Got a little baseball to discuss. We're not necessarily a month away because January has 31 days, but from date to date, it's a month. Does that count?
Counts. That's because you know what? Doing the math that you just did is not my forte, especially on the fly. So
Ooh, I think it is.
I see January 14th and February 14th to me. That's a month.
Okay. Well, that's kind of why I was thinking that. That's not necessarily why we had John on. Have John. We haven't had him on yet, so I better be careful. But why we have scheduled him. But it's not it. It just happens to coincide.
It's a coincidence.
Yes. But we look forward to speaking with Mr. Whittle coming up bottom of the hour. AFCA meetings going on up in Charlotte this year. That's the American Football Coaches Association. And I'm getting mixed signals. There's a lot that they'll discuss. And while they discuss rules and rule changes they would like to see, obviously they alone cannot just do that. They have to then take a proposal to, it's kind of like if you were to write your senator or representative, as a citizen. And then it's up to them to begin the legislative process. One of these coaches will hopefully take this back to their athletics director, who will then take it to a president who it's the whole thing. NCAA has to make the rules. But there's two that they're discussing today, amongst others, that have made some headlines. One is further movement of the transfer portal after the season. And the other is the potential penalties for fake injuries. But here's the thing. You can't know if it's a fake injury or a real injury. So they've proposed a punishment. The thing is, I couldn't really tell when I last checked if they had actually brought that up today, if it was simply on the agenda. And I'm wondering how many of them really want to do it. The rule change proposal would be that any player who goes down on either side of the ball would then be ineligible for the remainder of that drive. And the only way that player could be reinstated into the game during that drive is if his team uses a timeout. I'll be honest with you on that one, because I had thought about this, and then you and I have never really discussed it because we just have other things to discuss. But I did think like a minimum of 3 plays, because that way it is going to really at least cause a coach to think about it when they do want a player to go down. And we obviously know that I want to be careful. The bulk of these are probably artificial. Is that fair?
Yeah. If somebody's lined up and then a coach points at him, tells him to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is when we can determine that it's probably not a legitimate injury.
But so I thought about that, like just again as an example in soccer, at least in European soccer, if you get hurt and they have to come out and look at you, you have to come off the field once if the trainers come out. Like if you're hurt, they got to stretcher you off. That's a different thing. But if, you got a cramp or something, they're coming to look at you, or you twisted your knee or something, you got to come off. And then you stand on the sideline, and then the referee, at his discretion or her discretion, will say, okay, you can come back now, but you don't just get to stay out there unless you're the goalie. That's a little different. But and that works. There's not a lot of the feigning of injuries because of that. And I think it's something. So I like that one. The one about the transfer window change, I like in theory. I question in practice. We'll touch on that for you coming up in just a little bit. Got some basketball to discuss. Gamecocks hit the road. They'll be in Nashville tomorrow night for a game against Vandy. A slate of games tonight in SEC hoops. Can South Carolina use what they did against Auburn and begin to turn this thing around? Listen, they're still sitting on 10 wins. Obviously, no wins in conference play. Again, not to try to sound like I'm raining on the parade, but I find it, unless we see something that changes and you start to get a lot of wins in a row, can you go 10-5 the rest of the way? Because I think that's probably what it's going to take unless you make some kind of run in the tournament. You've got an albatross of a loss that will haunt you when the committee comes calling if you are in that discussion. And there's nothing you can do about that save for winning game. It would have been really nice to beat Auburn the other day.
Oh, that would have been massive. Changes your season.
That might actually have canceled out the loss to North Florida. Might have. And am I right in saying that as we speak, that's a quad 3?
It is, as we speak, a quad 3.
So not maybe the killer that we thought it could have been, but nevertheless not great, and we don't know how anybody's seasons are going to end as of yet. Vandy looks beatable, and yet the computers give the Commodores a very heavy chance to win this game, primarily because it's on the road, I suppose. But we'll touch on some of that and see where the EBPI is cranking up as we get closer. We'll have a final EBPI prognostication, obviously, on tomorrow's program.
Correction, no, that North Florida did move in the net ranking in the last 48 hours. It is now a quad 4.
Oh, boy. Okay. Because last time I looked, it was quad 3 still.
And Clemson is no longer a quad 1 win, so now you are winless in the first quadrant.
Yeah. I just, I have a question on here for today's rundown. What's acceptable by March?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get as close as 500 as possible. I mean, if anything, to salvage momentum of a season. Like, the last thing you want to do is do what Missouri did last year, have a couple close losses against some really good teams, and never bounce back and go 0-18.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, man, in today's world, especially in this conference, to go, and I know they didn't, okay, but it's almost like you got to try to go 0-18, Mm-hmm. I don't believe that South Carolina will do that. I think Ken Palm still has them projected to win 5 times in conference play. But it'd be nice to start tomorrow night on the road and maybe go sneak up, if you will, if that's the right way to put it, against Oklahoma. There will be, I don't know what the gym will be like in Norman on Saturday afternoon.
They're coming off of a home loss against Georgia, so I don't know exactly how amped they're going to be for that game. I mean, that could be a catch them sleeping at home type deal.
One of the things, too, just as we kind of set the show up for today that we didn't discuss yesterday, the D1 Top 25 preseason poll is out. We might have mentioned it very briefly, but South Carolina is not in it. I guess we did mention it because I went through some of the SEC teams now that I think about it. But we'll talk to John about that, too. How much does that matter? I think there's going to be some fans around here that will be disappointed in that. Look at the strength of the league. Clemson's in there, too. East Carolina's in there. Duke is in there. I think North Carolina, Wake Forest are in there. And you're not. There's instant, he knows it, but there's instant pressure on Paul Maneri. Mm-hmm. And I here again, I may ask what's acceptable by March, what's acceptable by May for Carolina fans. Again, acceptable, not what you want. I know what you all want. That's easy because it's been that way around here for a quarter century or more. So I know what you want, but what's acceptable, right? What's realistic relative to acceptable?
That's probably the better question.
Yeah.
Is what is realistic?
Well, it's hard, and this is not me ragging on fans because this is fans all around the planet. Realism and fandom don't often go hand in hand.
The reason they're called fanatics.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to use the example of the guy, and I've used this game a bunch, but I'm going to use the example of the guy that hit us after the Alabama game and said everybody should be infuriated by losing to Alabama. I'm like, whoa. Infuriated? I was like, you want to go to the next Gamecock walk and scream at Lenoris for throwing that ball in the stands? Like, what's infuriated here? Hey, hold on. But at the same time, you have a lot of resources. And this baseball program has underachieved relative to resources. Mm-hmm. I don't know, depending on who you ask, I don't know if this baseball program has underachieved relative to expectation. But again, it depends upon who is placing those expectations. If it's fans, hardcore fans, yeah. But if it's guys like our buddy Aaron Fitt at D1, Aaron may tell you, well, based on the roster, they're doing about what they can do. That's about what they've had. And you look at some of the injuries to the pitching staff, et cetera, et cetera. But John will touch on those things for us coming up in just a little bit. Got a poll question out there today. Let me get to it real fast. And then I have a question for you, Elijah. The poll question today, and I said yesterday I was going to do this and that I was going to let it run through the end of the week. The question, as we look ahead to the 2025 Gamecock football season, how often would you like to see the 1980-style uniforms worn? We touched on this. It's a good look.
It's sexy.
It's a good look. A, every game. B, 3 to 5 games. I just kind of put a random. That could be just the hodgepodge. That I just threw at. That's that don't hold me to the 3 to 5.
That basically you're meaning occasionally.
Some. C, once a season. D, never again. We have more than 100 votes. I threw this out around lunchtime, I think. 2.6% never again. I don't think those are Carolina fans. Do you?
It can't be. It can't be. I wish there was a way we could vet this.
Right.
But there can't be, because those, universally loved by the fan base here.
It felt like it, but maybe not. I don't know.
I would like to hear why.
Yeah, I'd like that. I thought about throwing that out. Like, if you're voting never again,
please comment as to why.
Do you just really want them to only wear the garnet helmet or the black helmet?
You must have one that you prefer over the others. I think that's their best look. Even though I do regret my vote. I will say there is a little bit of vote regret. I got a little caught up in the moment, and I voted every game.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think I mean that, because I like their other jerseys too. I love the other looks that they'll sport out.
Well, I don't mind. I would wear the helmet every game. If you want to wear a black shirt, a garnet shirt, obviously a white shirt on the road, unless you go to LSU and they like to wear white at home, then you can wear garnet or black over there. That's cool. But I like that helmet. I like it. But maybe I'm too partial because of when I grew up. And, the fact that I was in Williams-Brice Stadium while George Rogers was running for 1,000 yards in 3 consecutive seasons. So there's that. Anyway, hit us up at jphillips1075 if you would like to participate in that one. I'm going to let it run for a few days, and we'll talk about it for a few days and get some of our guests' participation and opinion on that one for you. Got some NFL things to get to. Playoffs now set after the Vikings decided last night. Man, having Joe and Troy rag on you like that at the end of the game must have been kind of rough for the Vikings. But they did indeed seem like they just didn't really want to push for anything. I was like them. I was like, man, y'all, no urgency.
Their soul was broken. I think that first half and then not scoring on the first drive of the second half broke their will to play football.
I suppose that's true, but that was a tough watch for a while. But good for the Rams.
I just watching that for Sam Darnold. Like, I have no relation to Sam. I don't know him or anything like that, but I genuinely felt bad for him.
That's fair.
Watching his next NFL contract get devalued by at least 50% with how many sacks he took, where he had clean pockets.
You think it did?
Danced around, yeah.
Because he had a heck of a year, man.
But those last 2 games were
when
bad.
It counts. When it counts.
They weren't just bad.
No,
they were all-time stinkers.
They were. Well, and I didn't realize this until last night when I was listening to this or just doing some other things while I was watching that game. I probably heard it and just moved on from it. That Justin Herbert threw more interceptions in the playoff loss than he did during the season, and he is the only quarterback to do that in the history of the National Football League.
That's not good history.
That's not.
You don't love that.
No. 803-404-6100 to be a part of the program. John Whittle coming up in just a bit. It's the Tuesday Postgame Show. Resolved to get yard work done better than ever with my good friends at Cato's Power Equipment. Ben, Matt, the entire crew ready to help you out. Completely renovated showroom. They've been in business now for more than 40 years. Was talking with Ben Cato just a few days ago. He said, we were just going to do a few things to kind of spruce the place up, and then one thing led to another, and we decided to completely remodel the entire showroom. Now, many of you have been going to Cato's for years and years for all your power equipment needs, whether it's new equipment, service, just to, chat with the guys and get advice on what's going on. So go check it out. And remember now, for those of you in the area, free pickup and delivery this month on Toros, Gravely's. When it comes to new mowers, they'll get it out there to you within a 30-mile radius. Great service department. If you're in the business, make sure that everything is good to go to keep things nice and smooth all year long. Whether you do it for yourself, you do it for a living, see Cato's for great sales, service, and advice. Cato's Power Equipment, 4012 West Beltline Boulevard. Welcome back to the Postgame Show on this Tuesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. So the AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association, having an annual meeting up in Charlotte this week. They have it all over the country, but this year it's in Charlotte. Good for them. two proposals, amongst others, that they have put together. One is moving the transfer window, and they want a shorter window. They want it after bowl games and in January, a single 10-day period in January. That's one of them. The other has to do with the feigning of injury and what might happen to players and teams when that occurs. So let's start with the transfer one. A 10-day window in January. During the meeting, coaches supported the move to a single portal window from January 2 through January 12, starting next year, a year from now. According to this report, it says such a move, this is from David Hale, such a move would eliminate the current portal windows in both December and April with the single shorter window. The recommendation now moves to the NCAA Oversight Committee and ultimately the NCAA Division I Council for final approval, which is far from guaranteed. Classes started at Carolina yesterday. Some schools started back last week. I get why they want to do this, and it's not that I'm saying this is stupid, but I just think school has to matter here, and you have to understand that some schools start earlier than others, and what kind of disadvantage is that going to be for some schools, teams, coaches, programs, et cetera. I think that's problematic. I still contend that one transfer portal is enough, but I would do it after the spring semester. But I also understand that from a football calendar perspective, Elijah, relative to a school calendar, the football calendar for a coach, a program, a team starts, honestly now for a lot of them, most of them, if you will, starts with bowl practice, right? Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, if you make a bowl. And if not, then it just, I mean, as soon as your season's done, you're starting. So it's more of a calendar year kind of a system in football, not an academic calendar kind of a year. I got a hunch this doesn't pass at the NCAA level.
So let me get this clear because I want to double check because I got myself a little confused reading this. This would eliminate the December transfer portal window.
This would eliminate this would be the transfer window, period.
Oh, my God. Okay, I want to ask you a few questions, Jay Phelps. You tell me if this sounds plausible. For an athlete to be able to adequately enter the portal without any tampering, right? Because coaches hate tampering. We hear them all the time, in interviews. Jim Mora after the Fenway Bowl, all these coaches are calling my players right now, trying to get them, blah, 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 blah. We've heard the complaints of tampering and all that kind of stuff all the time, right?
The Boise OC was doing it.
Yeah.
Saying, they're calling our guys.
Dirk Cutter was saying that in an interview as well. So apparently coaches agreed this is a bad thing to be tampering. Mm-hmm. Do you think you're going to eliminate tampering by limiting the window in which players can enter the transfer portal and then declare?
I'll just tell you that we will eliminate tampering when we eliminate the sport of college football.
I think that's going to make it significantly worse. Like a 10-day, like that would make it a whole lot worse when you shorten that time.
If they want to do this, I think it's fine. Again, in theory. But if your school starts back sooner than that, the school you want to go to, and they can't get you in,
then what's the
point?
Yeah, because you can't be there during the spring.
Right.
Which is really the biggest thing.
Now, and there's no way anymore to say, all right, you can enter but have no contact until, you can't, none of that. I like what they're trying to do. And I wonder here, too, if the Coaches Association isn't floating this solely for the purpose of getting a broader discussion for change at the NCAA legislative level. Because, again, anything they want to do here is nothing more than really, I guess, recommendation is a fair way to say it, but it's really more of a hope,
Yeah.
But I don't see a problem in, again, we talked about this too, move spring. We had the Scott Dockerman piece last week on The Athletic. Great piece. And 90 plus
the way
percent
to
of
do
it.
it.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it.
90 plus percent of what he proposed, we've already either talked about on this show or we'd already agreed with. And some of you may feel differently. And I can't get into all the details of what it was that Scott put forth, but one of them was move spring ball to the end of the spring semester at your school. Then have a transfer window and figure it out from there. And then everybody reconvenes anyway in July for practice to begin in August. And you could figure all those kinds of things out. I like that. Now, you could still have something in the middle of the year right after the season if they can jump in. But since you wouldn't have spring ball during the spring semester, it wouldn't be as impactful if you couldn't transfer until May or early June. And I think he's right about that. Now, it does disrupt what coaches have become used to, but let's face it, everything's disruptive right now. Everything. So if we're creating, we had all these, remember during COVID, one of the buzz terms that came out was new normal. Well, we're getting new normal in college football, but we're not anywhere close to it yet. We're not anywhere close to new normal being normal. So, we're going to go through tons of changes to try and see if these things fit. This is like going to the shoe store when you were a kid with your grandma. You get to try on all. I only need to try on one pair, Grandma. They're all the same size just because they look different. No.
It's built for the same size foot.
So I remember doing that a couple times. I was like, why I have to try on all these shoes? I was like, where's my mom? May my two grandmothers rest in peace. Wonderful women that I loved dearly.
You tried on a lot of shoes.
But I'm like, I don't need to try on all these shoes. Just give me a pair of flip-flops and Nikes and I'm good, man.
This is my shoe size. It will fit whatever.
Yeah, it'll fit. But anyway, so I don't think that this is going to fly. Something like it may.
Logistically, it won't.
But I don't think that one 10-day window, the first 2 weeks of January, is going to be enough for collegiate leaders to say these young men and women, and this would be football only, these young men have enough of an opportunity to decide for themselves what it is they really want, or have enough time to make an informed decision.
Yes, and especially if your team's in the playoff. The college football playoff runs.
And then there'd be exceptions for that.
But even then,
you can't get. But again, school started.
Yeah.
I mean, if you play for one of these two schools that plays next week, you're not transferring this semester.
No.
You can't. Your school's already started. There's no way. Unless the school you want to go to runs on a trimester system and they don't do that one until March or something, then you get lucky. But that's not uniform, so I'm not sure how that works either. We'll talk some Gamecock football, a little hoops, a little baseball as well. We'll try to get as much as we can in with our very good friend John Whittle on the beat with the Big Spur. He will join us when the postgame show returns. Time to find out what's going on around a lot of things with Gamecock Sports as we welcome back onto the program our very good friend John Whittle on the beat for the Big Spur. I told Elijah that John and I could sit here for the next 15 minutes or so and commiserate about Arsenal's problems, but we're not going to do that.
It was a great weekend for you guys.
It was not at all a great weekend, Elijah, and I do not appreciate you saying that, but I look forward to cheering against you tomorrow afternoon in the North London Derby. But that's a whole other topic. Mr. Whittle, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm just more curious as to whether your carpets are as insanely clean to start the new year as Bill Gunter's.
Man, nothing I do is like Bill Gunter, and I'm just going to leave it at that, John.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that curiosity, I'm doing wonderful over here, and hope you guys are too. It's good to be back on with you guys.
Yeah, we've missed you. Let's start with the most important topic of the day, John Whittle, the poll question that I am running here. As we look ahead to the football season, which is still obviously a long way off, how often would you, John Whittle, like to see the 1980-style uniforms worn? Every game, 3 to 5 games, once a season, never again?
Well, I guess my question would be, what happens in that first game that you wear them?
Oh,
As long as you're winning, keep rocking.
yeah. Well, they won the first time they wore them, right? They did. They look good in that helmet. But they look, yeah.
Which is why you debuted that against Akron.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Well, I mean, wear them once and see how it goes, and if you like them, keep rocking.
That's fair. All right, that's fair. We'll leave it there for now. We'll see what they do against Virginia Tech. I imagine they don't wear those against Tech, but we'll see. John Whittle's overall grading of, I guess I should just say, roster business. There's so many different moving parts, John, between high school recruiting, portal recruiting, current player retention, at least for those with eligibility. How you think Shane and the company have done in these last few weeks?
I mean, I would say really well. I mean, I think you got to say probably a B plus or an A. I mean, they've added some really good players with the addition of Brandon Cisse, the cornerback last night. They moved up to 12th in the 24/7 Sports transfer ranking, so that's pretty darn good. You know, so much of it is not only bringing guys in, but keeping guys from leaving. And I think South Carolina did a really good job this time around of keeping guys from leaving. So obviously there's another portal window to get through in the spring, and be sure you get all your guys back. But you know, I think you got to feel really good about not only your additions, but your non-losses.
Yeah, in terms of the additions, too, I mean, the defense, you just lose so much from guys going to the draft, running out of eligibility, and a defense that was the strength of your team for most of the year. It was a fantastic defensive unit. Got Dylan Stewart coming back, but how much do you think they were able to supplement those defensive losses in the portal to try to, you know, come back with, you know, a group that can at least mirror some of the success you had this year?
Well, the good news is these coaches knew everything that they were losing. Like, there's no person on the roster who, you know, they thought would be back and is not. So not only did they know what they needed to address, you know, in the portal and in recruiting, you know, they had the opportunity to coach up guys in those players' places who are already on campus over the course of the fall. So I think that's something that needs to be remembered as well. It's not like, you know, Texas has lost a ton of guys to the portal here recently, right? Like they're having to deal with all of these things right now, and it's not something that they were really expecting to deal with. Like, I think that South Carolina has done a good job on the defensive side of the ball to take care of some of their spots. You know, I think they may be a little bit stronger in some places than, or the strengths may be a little bit different next year than they were, you know, this past season. You know, we'll see how things come together at defensive tackle. Like, they didn't bring in a guy who's just has crazy credentials, but they've got some guys in there and some depth, and you know, maybe you see something happen again in the spring, see what comes about. But through high school recruiting and through junior college recruiting and through the portal and bringing a couple of guys back and Gutwine and Barrett, you know, I think you're okay.
Talking to John Whittle of the Big Spur. Gamecock football, obviously, looking good over what they've done recruiting-wise, and now we start looking ahead to spring ball here in a couple of months' time. Well, 1 month from today, from at least a calendar date perspective, Mr. Whittle, Paul Mainieri makes his debut as South Carolina's baseball coach. Sacred Heart will be the opponent that weekend. South Carolina not in the D1 baseball preseason top 25. How would you expect fans around here to take that? And do you also believe that's a fair assessment that the Gamecocks, as we speak, not amongst the preseason best?
It wouldn't bother me too much. You know, at the end of the day, you could probably put all 16 SEC teams in there, or at least 15 of the 16, and be fine. But D1 baseball is not going to do that. Like 14, 15 of the teams in the league are probably of the best 25 in the country, but that's just not going to be the way it's ranked. And, you know, South Carolina's probably a little bit outside, and you know, in some ways you understand that. You know, you have a coaching change, although you bring in a pretty darn good one. You lose a few players. You maybe didn't hit on some of the big names in the portal, like some of the other teams in the SEC. Hit on some good players, but maybe not some of the biggest names. You didn't bring in a very highly ranked recruiting class, although you got some good players in there who I think we're going to be introduced to maybe pretty early on. So I don't know. I don't think that you can be too upset about the non-ranking, but at the same time, you're not too far off the pace.
And when you look at this team right now, I mean, after fall ball and everything like that, now they're getting closer to the season. What's maybe the one thing about this team, from what you've been able to see, that it might be keeping them from cracking a preseason top 25 of any website or publication?
Well, I think you look at the fact that you have Ethan Petrie, but you don't necessarily know how many other dudes you have, you know, whether that's on the pitching staff or you know, as position players. Like, you know, when all SEC lists come out, like Ethan Petrie is going to be there, and that's it. And, you know, but you've got some guys who I think can step into the spotlight from an SEC standpoint as the season goes along. Like, is Henry Kasmer at shortstop going to be what South Carolina thinks? Is Eli Jerzenbeck coming back from his injury going to be, you know, what South Carolina thinks? And, you know, those guys are guys who can make their name not only in an SEC standpoint, but from a national standpoint. But South Carolina doesn't really have a whole lot of those name guys right now, and some guys who they're expecting to play, you know, significant roles, really haven't necessarily done it before. And, you know, that's kind of a scary thought in some ways, but, you know, you can introduce some really good players here to the league pretty soon as well. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that you look at, and one thing that maybe holds South Carolina back from the rankings, and, you know, may ultimately hold them back, period, but certainly holds them back from the rankings.
John, get you out of here with a couple of basketball questions. Gamecocks sitting on 10 wins right now. Played well, obviously, very well against Auburn, but a loss is a loss. This team only has one bad loss. Otherwise, the games where they've been beaten, you could say you expected them to lose. Now, you would certainly want to win if you're a fan, but looking with the 15 games left in the regular season and at least one in the tournament, you can probably have to win 10 of those if you want to be back in NCAA discussion. What are you looking at as the biggest challenge, A, and B? I have a question here that I've kind of open-endedly asked on today's show. What's acceptable for this team by March?
Well, if I understood you right, I think you said you need to win 10 and the confidence to be back in the discussion. I don't know that that's true. I think you're very much in the discussion if you win 8, with as good as this league is. So, you know, I think that's a big ask to win 8 for this team. So, you know, I'm not taking that statement lightly either. So, but in terms of like what can be a good season or so forth, you know, I think it's a little early to talk about that. But I do think one I should have gone back and fact checked this, but one of our 24/7 sports writers cited Ken Palm is saying that this is the second highest rated league when it comes to ranking leagues. Basically called it modern basketball era, apart from the ACC league in 96, 97, I believe it was. So, like, that tells you what kind of league this is this year. With South Carolina, with this team, if you make the NIT, it's the postseason for the second straight year. I mean, I think it's okay. It's not ideal, but I think it's okay. And I don't know that I'm not one who's going to sit here and rule out the NCAA tournament just yet. It certainly has not looked like an NCAA tournament team for a lot of different reasons. But I'm just not one of those folks who gives up that easily on things. So I think that South Carolina still has a way to get there, but if it becomes an NIT team, I think that's okay.
Appreciate you as always, sir. Good to have you back. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
That's our good friend John Whittle. This is the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Thanks, as always, to our good friend John Whittle. Appreciate his time. John raises an interesting point about Carolina men's basketball. It's one of the reasons that I love having him on. I'm not going to hold hard and fast to my belief that you got to get to 20 wins in order to be considered for the NCAA tournament. You and I have talked a lot about the fact that the computer models do show. I mean, we've said it before. It's a literal truth here. The Southeastern Conference in men's basketball has never been stronger, top to bottom, than it is this season. That's a literal truth as we speak, based on how these things are ranked. Again, if you want to get into a lot of the subjectivity of, well, that team and that, I'm not here for all that. But as things go. But when you look at the listen, and I'm not lamenting when I say what I'm getting ready to say, but maybe I kind of am. But man, beating Auburn would have been a big deal because that's the best team on your schedule.
Oh, that's a banner win on the resume.
And it would have really gone a long way towards giving you some of the things that you need in order to have, to John's point, to have 18 overall wins and going 8-10 in conference play be enough for you when you have that North Florida loss. And I don't know how many of you get annoyed by people like me or Elijah or anybody else that talks about that North Florida loss. But, y'all, it's a horrible loss. And I don't have to take you too far back in the Gamecock basketball annals to realize what those kinds of losses can do to the program. When Carolina lost to Wyoming or when they lost to Stetson or some others during Frank Martin's run. And it was games like that they were a big, giant anchor around your neck that you could not let go of. Even if you won 10 or 11 games in conference play. And Frank was winning games in conference play. There was a 5-year run where Carolina was like the 4th best team in terms of conference winning percentage. And they had one tournament to show for it. We know what happened in that tournament. But in the other years, you didn't even make it.
Yeah.
And I know one year you got hosed, a lot of people think. But again, you got to go win some of those games. When your team number 69 or 70, nice. I don't have nearly as much sympathy for you as some people want. I get the point you make. Look, in terms of remaining schedule, Tennessee is the next best team that you will play. You don't see them, Elijah tells me, until the last day of the regular season in Knoxville.
March 8th.
Yeah, I don't like your chances in that one.
That's tough.
So, really tough. Let's chalk that one up for the sake of our discussion as a loss. All right? Are you going to go 8-6 in the others, to John's point? 9-5 maybe?
Yeah.
10-4? I mean, that's the realm you've got to go live in. And I'm not assuming, because I know Carolina went to Knoxville and won last year. Different team. But, but just for the sake of the discussion, can you go somewhere between 8-6 and 10-4 in the other 14 games that you have left? And can you? Yeah, sure. You can go 14-0 in those games. But how likely is that? Not so likely, or so it would appear.
Here's the issue. Because there are a lot of good teams in the SEC. We've beaten that drum religiously. But if you look at the standings right now, there's a cluster of teams that you would consider ultimately being on the bubble. There are a lot of 0-3 teams: Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, LSU, South Carolina, all 0-3 in the conference. Vanderbilt's 1-2, and then you have another cluster of 2-1 teams, and some of those teams are Tennessee, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Kentucky. Really good basketball teams that are in the top 15 in net. Mm-hmm. You're not only going to have to be able to separate yourself. 8 wins might put you in the conversation, but because of your quad 4 loss, you are going to have to separate yourself significantly more. Would you like to guess how many quad 3 and quad 4 losses the rest of the SEC has? Outside of South Carolina, how many quad 3 and quad 4 losses does the SEC have?
I mean, I feel like you're setting me up where the answer is going to be none, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with the other 15 schools having played a bunch of non-cons. 3.
Not a single one.
Oh, boy. So I was right the first time.
The only SEC quad 3 or quad 4 loss that exists is South Carolina's loss to North Florida. So not only are you going to have to do more than that group that's going to win potentially 7 to 9 games. So there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a cluster.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of teams that are at 500 or slightly above, slightly below by the time we get to the end of the season. And if you happen to be one of those teams, congratulations. You put yourself in the discussion.
Yeah.
But you have the black eye loss that none of them are going to have because there are no
Yeah, there are no Williams. There's none left for them to have, correct.
unless they lose to you
Yeah.
because you are sub 90 in the net. You would be the only one they lose to. So you have to beat one of those teams in the top 15 in net to have a banner win that maybe some of them might not have.
That's a big mountain to climb. Climbable? Sure. Better get you one of those really good Sherpas.
And start working on that upper body strength.
Hour 2 of the postgame show coming at you. Jay and Elijah. I tell you a lot about integrated media, and now I get to tell you a lot about ProSwing, owned by the great guys at Integrated Media. Nathan, Michael, David, Steven, the whole crew. Memberships now available at both locations, rental by the hour for 1 to 6 players. They're open Sunday through Thursday, 9 to 9. Fridays and Saturdays, they open at 9. They'll be running until 10 o'clock. Online and in-person leagues. And, of course, we've been telling you around here about the inaugural 107.5 The Game Pro Swing Golf Tournament. They've added a day. You heard me right. They've added a day. Raffle tickets for baseball, tailor-made products, Pro Swing gift cards, free fittings and lessons. You can sign up for this, $150 per two-man team. Takes a couple of hours to play. Going to be so much fun. We're going to be broadcasting live on the Thursday and Friday of the tournament. Stop by and see. The new location is absolutely fantastic. Y'all been in there many times. Forest Drive, very cool. Pro Swing, Integrated Media. Check them out. 4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back into the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. We're inside the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia. And as we say every day, because we mean it, wherever you are, thank you for choosing to spend some of your afternoon with us. Elijah just sent me a tweet from Matt Winter, who's an NIL attorney and really good at what he does. And
they don't call him Matt Loser.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Even though it's winter, but it's still fun to say it that way.
It is. I thought maybe I could play a little
close.
game on sounds here. Maybe not spellings and words.
That's
I
fair.
Bend the English language to my will.
You did close. You did all right. Matt, the one he sent me, I was looking at other things that he said, and he actually hit on something else that we've talked about today. So I'm going to blend both of these in just a second. We'll get into a few thoughts around the NFL. CFP obviously is now less than a week away in terms of a championship, Ohio State and Notre Dame. We threw it out for you yesterday. Will it break the record for most viewed college football game ever? 33.4 million. Ohio State-Oregon championship game a decade ago. So 33.4. And we talked about this yesterday, too. If you're wondering how that compares to anything in the NFL, Super Bowl, I don't count because the Super Bowl is a completely different situation. But AFC and NFC championship games often do in the 45 to 50 million range. So it's not going to get there. But because these are two iconic brands, will it be the biggest college game ever television-wise? It could be.
It could be.
Could be.
I want to, I'll put a percentage index chance on this. I say there's a 40% chance it does. I'll say more likely than not, it does not reach that.
Yeah. All right. Well, then, just for yucks, not that we're going to bet on it. I'm not spinning Bill's wheel over here or anything, but I'll take your 60. I'll take that other side. I think it's got a solid. I wouldn't say 95. I wouldn't go like, oh yeah, oh, of course it is. They're going to get 40 million.
Yeah. I don't really feel strongly one way or the other if it happens or not.
No, I don't either.
I think it's less likely to happen.
I was asking you though, what that year made that game so special?
I was thinking the same thing. I think it's the curiosity. I think it's the curiosity of the championship in a playoff scenario.
Yeah.
And that might be why it breaks the record.
Because that was the first CFP game, yes?
Indeed it was.
Yeah.
Also featuring Ohio State. So anytime the college football playoff expands, you should bet on Ohio State to make the championship game.
Wow, how about that? I hadn't thought about that.
That's trending.
I have not thought about that.
That's called a trend, my friends.
We'll come back around to some of those things for you in just a little bit. Matt Winter, as we said, NIL attorney, says Colorado is the latest school to shut down its NIL collective, with schools likely soon making NIL payments to athletes as part of the House settlement or already doing so. Colorado is now directing donors to just give to the school for NIL purposes. Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with this at all. In fact, yours truly has been an advocate of schools taking over yesterday, if you will. I even said that when the state of South Carolina, just across the street from us here last year, the legislature passed the NIL laws that Carolina, Clemson, Coastal, and others really lobbied for. And I put those three above the others because they all have, in a relative sense, pretty big football programs too. If you feel confident in your collective's ability to do its job, then you're probably going to leave it alone. Knoxville, I'm looking in your direction. Oxford, I'm looking in your direction. But where is it not happening? Clemson is kind of going to up its game this coming year. What is that going to look like? And I'm leaving some out, obviously, that are doing a fine job. But are there others where it's like, look at Florida. I still don't know if Florida knows what's going on with their NIL collective. And they've got one again, but the first one that they had, when it was just a Wild Wild West,
got sued.
That got them in some trouble, and it wasn't even them. That's just it. That's the problem that I've had, is you can't have people using your name, using your image, using your likeness, and I'm looking at you universities, not you players, and you have nothing to do. Again, I believe Billy Napier. Now, some of y'all said, Jay, come on. You don't believe Billy Napier. I do. I don't think Billy Napier, listen, coaches may run their mouth a lot. I run my mouth for a living. But I'm not so stupid as to say I'm just going to throw out Dan Patrick. Hey, Dan, when you retire next year, come work here at WNKT in Columbia. We'll pay you $10 million.
We got it. Just lying around.
No, we got it. Don't worry about it. We'll get some sponsors. We'll get some live reads. I can only imagine how the people upstairs or the corporate people would go, wait, he said what to who?
You promised what? And how much?
Billy and his staff can try to recruit Jaden Rashada, but they didn't have $13 million. $13 million.
And they would know they don't have $13 million. That'd be like me promising somebody $13 million for any type of service, knowing damn well I don't have it. Because you know what? Eventually, they're going to ask for that money if the service is done. A coach would be smart enough to not promise that.
I think a lot of schools are going to be in the next couple of months taking a really hard look at how this is going. And hear me out, because I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm using the example of what we do have here in Columbia. A brand new athletics director, hired in part to oversee the transformation of South Carolina's athletics department in this new era. We know that's why Jeremiah Donati has been hired. We know it. We don't think it. We know it. So, and he's only been on the job a couple of weeks, literally. What's he looking at when it comes to the NIL space? How does he view the Garnet Trust? Now, again, I'm suggesting nothing, but you have to take a look.
Or how much control would he feel comfortable having?
Yeah.
And that's something that has had been discussed for him to get the job. If
they're working on your behalf, but they're not part of you, and now I'm speaking again in very general terms, coast to coast, border to border, that could get dicey.
It's a compliance risk.
Because we've seen issues arise. So is Colorado doing the prudent thing here by simply saying, we're taking over? And hey, fans, we want you to give. Just earmark it now, and we'll make sure it goes into it. Now, you got to be careful with that part of it, too. Does a fan really know that, hey, I want to give to the player fund?
Yes.
Those are also some things that will have to be looked at.
I don't want to give to the athletic director's fund.
So I'll be curious to see what schools follow suit, how that all goes down. But, again, making judgments on no one other than Florida.
UNLV.
Vegas.
Tulsa.
Yeah, that one was bad, too.
That one was really bad. Leonard Hamilton.
Yeah, Leonard's in some trouble.
There are countless examples of how this can go awry, and if you don't pay up.
So I guess I'm looking at a few, but
school compliances and accountability.
But if you have a collective that ends up getting your school sued, and nobody that is employed by your school had anything to do with it, that's beyond problematic. Especially if you got to go to court and pay for it, and then the person, and let's say you win and you get court costs and all those kind of things. They didn't have any money anyway. So you ain't getting that money back, man. So
good point. I hadn't thought about that.
I mean, again, I got a Walmart gift card that my grandma gave me a couple years ago. It's got like $1.85 left on it after I bought my last PlayStation game.
You can buy you a delicious icy with that.
Sure. And I do like an icy.
Ices are good.
But that will not pay my court costs.
No, it will not. It would take a lot of ices to cover the court cost.
You might have to buy the Icy Corporation
to cover the court cost.
So, something to think about. We'll keep an eye on it. But and also, I mean, do I blend the Dion story now because we're talking about Colorado?
I think that's perfect because it's interesting. It's a very interesting angle.
So, if you guys haven't heard, it was not a formal interview, but last night, and it's been confirmed because Dion spoke to Adam Schefter post conversation. But Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders did have a talk last night about the Dallas Cowboy opening. Again, not a formal interview. One of those may be coming. It may not. Deion was on record last week, I think it was, maybe a couple weeks ago, as saying the only way I am going to coach in the NFL is if I can coach my boys. Well, Shedeur, at least, is not going to be a Dallas Cowboy because they are not going to draft him in the first round and pay him first-round money when they are already paying Dak Prescott.
Unless.
All right, let me hear this.
The Tennessee Titans choose to trade that first number 1 overall pick, which a lot of people, even you included, have suggested they do because
I have.
Do you want to throw all your chips in your eggs in the Shedeur Sanders basket or the Cam Ward basket? Using a number 1 or 2 with that, which is certainly something you would do. You would pay them a lot of money, even as rookies. Do you do that? Or do you go ahead and trade for Dak's contract, get a veteran quarterback, and then be able to pick swap, still get a good first-round pick in the top half of the first round, and then get more? Because, if Dallas really wants Dion and they make the move to make him the next head coach, they will do whatever it takes. And I'm not even hyperbolic about whatever. They might give you an extra second round, an extra third round, a first round in 2026 or 2027. They might give you their washing machine. They might give you access to their own facilities for a little bit if you ever just wanted to use them. They might give you whatever it is you want. Maybe the Icy Corporation, but they would do whatever it takes to get Shedeur Sanders to do their end of the deal. So the ultimate bargaining power, bam, rests in the laps of the Tennessee Titans.
Wow, you hurt my brain.
Yeah, you like that? I've been doing some thinking today. My head hurts.
Is that where you have to now believe if what you just said were to unfold and Dallas has Dion and Shedeur, Jerry and Stephen Jones have to just so fervently believe that Shedeur is going to become basically every bit of what Jalen Hurts already is and what Jaden Daniels is becoming.
And that can help them right away because they still have some pieces on that roster that can help you win right away. It's not a total rebuild.
And I can't possibly, you tell me, you've covered the team extensively. You've worked in the industry in Nashville. I say the Adams family, which is always fun to say, but is the Adams family going to take on Dak's contract?
If it meant having a quarterback.
What's he making? 40?
They don't even know who their GM is right now.
Well, that's true.
So if I'm a GM and I take that Titans job, do I want to attach my reputation to a rookie quarterback or a guy who's already done or been very successful as a quarterback in the NFL? With a defense that you have that is still a really good defense. The Titans didn't lose games because they couldn't stop anybody.
It's certainly a winnable.
They turned the ball over and couldn't score.
That Houston has won it 2 years in a row should tell you something.
Yeah.
With all due respect.
I mean, you get Dak Prescott. Do you get the best quarterback in the division now? I think there's a really good chance that you do, that you could say you have it.
Wow.
Yeah, I just know, I'm sure as hell no, you don't have it with Will Levis or with a rookie quarterback.
No. You got Richardson in Indy, so T-Law or Stroud? Wow, you rate. Wow. Again, you hurt my brain. I'm glad there's a commercial break right here because I need to reset. All right, we'll continue a little bit of this, get into some of the other things going on with the AFCA and how, again, attorney Matt Winter looks at some of the things that the coaches are proposing. It's the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the Postgame Show on this Tuesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you, discussing some of the business of college athletics. It feels like that wheel just keeps on spinning, sometimes a little bit out of control. Again, following along here from Mitt Winter, terrific follow on Twitter for those of you who are interested in not just the business of sports, but how the law interacts with it. He is a sports attorney. And he threw out, I guess this was last night when he threw this out, that Colorado was going to do away with its collective. He's also got another thing going on here. And he's done this today. And this is one of the things I was talking about that could be problematic. Again, if you missed the first part of the show or haven't heard it today, the AFCA, the Football Coaches Association, is having their meetings this week up in Charlotte. And amongst the agenda items, now again, they can't do anything that makes rules. They can recommend rule changes to the NCAA. And one of them that they want to do is a 10-day transfer window once a year, January 2 to January 12. That would be it for football transfers. That's it. No post-spring, no summer, not opening it up December the whatever. No, January 2 to January 12. And I did read more about it where they basically say we hope that would be enough for, for getting into school for the new semester and all those kind of things. We'll see. But you made a good point too, Elijah. I mean, for the kids at Ohio State and Notre Dame that, maybe numbers, and I'm just using, numbers 80 through 85 on the roster if you ranked them. And nobody actually does that, but you could. And they say, I want to go play somewhere. Well, you're not doing it now.
Mm-mm.
And that was why the kid at, forgive me.
Penn State.
Yeah.
Prabula.
Yeah.
Who played meaningful snaps.
Yeah, he played. I mean, he was not their number one. Aller is, but they had, they had the proverbial package for that kid. And he had playing time this year. And so in that respect, it was that was a tough decision. I get it. And maybe these kids shouldn't be in that spot. But Mitt says it will be interesting to see if this proposal, again, the 10-day, January 2 to 12, if this proposal to have only one transfer portal window for football gets any traction. Like a cap on player compensation, for something like this to have longevity, it will need to be negotiated with players. And he has two different tweets that basically say the same thing. Again, he's right. And then he added to it with this. After reading this, and he's talking about, again, the proposal, a plaintiff's attorney is drafting an antitrust complaint in the event this change to college football's transfer portal happens.
Meaning this will not be.
Because it's restrictive.
Yes.
It's restrictive. And what do I keep coming back to? Whether we as the American college football public like it or not, you cannot restrict the rights of free American adults when they don't have a say in said restriction. It's that simple. And it's easy enough to see. Now, I know it's Twitter. But it's easy enough to see on Twitter. Some people basically go, I don't care. You have to care.
That part's kind of a big one. Like, there's a lot of things, I would like to. I'd love to steal all the Reese's out of any convenience store on the planet because I love those peanut butter cups more than life itself. But you know what I can't do?
Steal them.
I can't steal them. It's illegal.
Yeah. I'd love to drive, 150 miles an hour so that I could be in Asheville in an hour every time I go to Asheville, which is like once a month instead of the 2.5 hours it typically takes.
But you can't do that.
Can't do that.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
So that part kind of makes the decision for you
as
to whether or not you participate.
So, again, there's that part of it to think about. I just wonder, and this is not for the coaches to go do, all right? But let's just say, and it's going to, let's say that this proposal passes the coaches' convention, okay? And then is put forth to the NCAA in whatever forms, committees, and then whatever, and on to a final membership vote. Is this now the time for the people at the NCAA level to go, all right, listen, what are we doing about something that can be collectively bargained? Will they be, Elijah Campbell, that proactive? Because they haven't been in the past.
No
Again, 20
evidence.
years ago, they could have started to be proactive. 10 years ago, they could have started to be proactive. And they still really haven't. Even with Governor Baker's new proposals as president of the NCAA, there's still not really a lot of proactivity to make meaningful long-term change. They still want to have it their way. We want them to be amateurs. We want to control their movements. We will pay them some, but we will put a cap on it. All of these things are going to be litigated because they aren't collectively bargained. And let me say again, you cannot, in the United States of America, you cannot restrict the rights of free American adults. In that sense, you just can't. Now, you might say, well, Jay, y'all just talked about laws that you make. And that's different. And you know what? You do have a say in the laws that are made because we have free elections. But when it comes to labor issues in sports, in manufacturing, in teaching, maybe not here in teaching, but in a lot of places, there's unions.
And stuff's collectively bargained.
And, that needs to happen here at some point. So I just, like I say, I don't mind the theoretical proposal that the coaches have put forth when it comes to a transfer window. I'd like to see it cleaned up too. But I don't know that this is going to be the one that ends the discussion.
Because it's still restrictive. And now going back, I was thinking about that hypothetical you posed. Are they going to be more proactive in order to get something like this done? And to me, there's only one answer, and that's no, because what do we keep circling back to? Collective bargaining. What's the one thing the NCAA will go to their deathbed over?
Employees.
Employment.
Employment.
Yeah. That is the almighty E word that is basically, to them, some type of poison pill that if they take it, they will cease to exist. And there are some challenges, of course, and we can go down that rabbit hole anytime, but if you start collectively bargaining, you do not just insinuate employment, you enact it at that point in time.
Yeah.
And you'll have to pry the employment tag out of their cold dead hands. And in order for that to happen, they have to really give up a lot that are not willing to give up.
And we may have cold dead hands.
Pretty much.
Because if the Power Four are really serious about some of the autonomy that they now want to take hold of, it may well end up with a new association. Where they can go do this a whole lot easier. And sure, bring a few more on board. Again, you're going to bring the Big East on board as long as those schools want to come. Bring the American on board. Doesn't have to just be the Power Four. You can find ways to bring those schools. I think some schools will want to sign. I mean, I would certainly hate to see the Big East not involved.
Oh, that'd be brutal.
And I think they would come on board. I think they would come on board. But, could we get to a place where you get 100 and something schools? I'd hate to see 64 go away for a basketball tournament. Maybe it goes to 48 again or 32 or some. So I don't know. I don't know. And I'm not hoping for these things. Trust me. I hoped that 10, 15, 20 years ago, we'd have people that understood we aren't living in 1958 any longer. But you know why we're in the mess we're in? Because they wanted to keep us in 1958 or 1938. And then you had a bunch of lawyers and judges go, yeah, that ain't how it works. This is the Postgame Show. Waking up stiff, sore, wondering why. Might be time for you to get to the Joint Chiropractic Centers. 4 very convenient locations across the Midlands to take care of you. Harbison Boulevard, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch up off Killian in the Northeast, Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. Joint Chiropractic Centers are convenient. They're affordable. They help you maintain a healthy body. They can help you prevent reoccurring issues. You never have to worry about insurance. You never have to worry about appointments. They're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 7, Saturdays, 10 until 4. They are FSA and HSA approved. And if you're traveling to out-of-town games or for business, vacation, whatever, and you need an adjustment, you can be seen at any of the hundreds of locations across the country. You'll be in the system, and a new doctor can access your records and see exactly what you've been through. So if you're bothered by all these things and you're ready to make a difference, go see our friends at The Joint. And remember this, you don't have to feel bad to feel better at The Joint.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a plethora of accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. Starting with one on Forest Drive at I-77. Got another one on Hardscrabble Road at Clemson Road. Highway 1 at Augusta Road at Pisgah Church Road. Highway 6 near Pilgrim Church Road. Highway 6 at Irmo Drive. I-77 southbound at 12th Street near Saxe-Gotha Exit 2. Laurel Street at Main Street. Salem Road near Margaret Road. And on Woodrow Street near Wheat Street.
Talking the business of college football and college athletics to some degree. AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association, putting forth a couple of proposals that they hope the NCAA will adapt. We'll get into the second one here in just a second. I think this is the one that might have the eye of the fan or catch the eye of the fan a little more easily. I know sometimes the transfer window stuff and all that kind of thing just kind of you get tired of hearing about all those kind of things. But you know, when you're watching a game, You don't like the fake injuries. We'll get into that one in just a second. First, though, let me tell you about a couple of things going on. The 107.5 The Game and Pro Swing Golf Classic is coming in just a couple of weeks. We'll be out there this Friday for their grand opening. Within 2 weeks later, we'll be smack in the middle of the winter indoor golf tournament. And I talked to Michael Geddes today. They've added a day. They've added a day to the tournament.
Ooh.
It's going to be so big. They're getting so many entries that they are adding the Saturday. So it was scheduled for Thursday and Friday, the 30th and 31st. Now they're adding Saturday, the 1st of February as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now that resembles more of a PGA golf event.
So if they go to Sunday, then, I mean, at this point.
Then we got to have a cut line.
That's right.
I like that. No, that's great.
Bookings available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Again, I thought we told somebody to change this. It doesn't really matter if at this point I'm the guy that changes it in writing on the sheet here.
It doesn't matter because no one's going to be back.
No, I'm the last guy in here. And then tomorrow there'll be another one that says but it's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I hope no one else is reading these and saying it's 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. when they're in here during the day.
Oh, my God. That would be hilarious, but also inaccurate
Haven't
and problematic
heard that
on its
as
own.
of yet, but it doesn't mean I can't listen to the station all the time. That's somebody else's job.
We'll just go ahead and say right now that there are no sleepovers allowed at Pro Swing.
There'll be some food included, a lot of great prizes, not just Carolina baseball tickets, but Pro Swing gift cards and other things, equipment, and from TaylorMade and so much more. This place is so cool, y'all. It is so cool. I mean, and it was packed on Saturday when I was in there for a bit, but they let me come in while they were fixing things up the week before Christmas, so I got to play Harbor Town.
Oh, yeah.
I could win the Heritage now.
You pretty much did at the game, right?
I won the Heritage that day. You want to know why? Because I was the only guy playing.
Yes, you did. You didn't have to include that last bit of information, that last caveat. You could just say you won it.
Well, and
it would be factually correct.
It was. It's true. So call Pro Swing at 528-1617. That's an 803 because they're here. 528-1617 to register, or just stop by that amazing new location on Forest Drive.
And check it out for yourself.
Yeah. It's across the street from the Lowe's Foods Shopping Center.
So someone's right now thinking, man, Jay, I think you're lying to me. I think you should go check it out.
I'm not a liar.
You can just take our word for it, or you can go and check it out yourself, which I recommend.
You should. Go have some fun with that. Pro Swing. All right. Can I do the poll question real quick, too? And then we'll get to the next one. All right. Poll question today. This one's going to run through the end of the week. We'll probably have the results while we're at Pro Swing on Friday. Look at that.
How about that?
As we look ahead to the 2025 Gamecock football season, how often would you like to see the 1980-style uniforms worn? A, every game. B, 3 to 5 games, which is, again, I've translated with Elijah's help to, some of them.
Yeah.
But 3 to 5, that's the chunk.
A good chunk. Yeah, I'll say a good chunk, not just 2. More than 2,
right.
Not just 1.
Once a season, never again. Now, I didn't give results last hour because I wanted to get the poll question kind of going, give people a chance to vote. As it stands right now, once a season is actually pretty far out front at 46.5%. 30.7% said the 3 to 5 games. 20.5% every game. And I think the only percentage I gave last time was the percentage for the never again, which was now at 2.4%. So, again, who doesn't? I don't think those are Gamecock fans.
No, it can't be. And I'd like, if you did vote no, or none at all.
Yeah, why don't you like it?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Point something out, yeah. At this point, I mean, something that's so universally liked in our fan base.
As far as you know, we will not judge, ridicule, or scold you for your take.
Well, I can never promise anyone that I'm not.
That's why I said as far as you know.
Yeah.
I want them to feel
and scold them.
Low levels of intimidation until such time as they do put forth an opinion. Then I come in for the kill like a tiger in the jungle.
Stalking your prey. This is how you lure them in.
Right.
So you can break people's confidence.
Sure.
We can't make promises we don't keep around here. That's the thing. So, I can't make that promise that it won't be ready.
I always say I'm pulling for you. I'm always pulling for you.
Yeah. Pull for everybody.
And, I sometimes say there's no wrong answers on a poll like this with opinions, except that there are.
Definitely are.
All right, so the AFCA also, that's the American Football Coaches Association, also is putting forth a proposition to the NCAA on fake injury punishment. But it's not fake injury punishment because you don't know if it's fake or not. So it's just injury punishment. But it's not, so therefore it's not really punishment. Yeah, so it's not punishment either. Yeah. Exactly. What they would like to see is if a player is injured, and has to have, like, the trainers come out, that player would have to miss the rest of the drive. So whatever side of the ball they're on doesn't matter. Now, typically this is going to be a defender who, my
running
knee.
Back to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, because most of this is about slowing down tempo offenses, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't get a chance to sub. I told you, we just didn't talk about this, but I thought, a month or so ago when we were talking about some of this kind of stuff, I was like, maybe they have to miss like 3 plays. And I made mention earlier in this show today, in soccer, if this happens, you have to come out. And for a little bit anyway, your team is playing with 10. Now, that's not happening in American football. But if you need assistance, because sometimes guys do, you talk, people think, NBA, you got floppers. In soccer, you got floppers and things like that. Now, usually they're trying to draw a foul, not fake an injury. But you might have teams that want to park the bus in soccer, and a guy just says, oh, I got a cramp. Well, you got to come off the field. Once you've been assisted by your medical team, you got to come off the field. So your team's playing with 10. So you are handicapping your team if you're faking it, which is why they're typically not fake. That, to me, might be the bigger fix, quite honestly, in American football, too.
It's to go down a man?
Yeah. All right. Hey, come on off there, linebacker. Whoa, coach. You're not subbing somebody in for him. You're playing with 10 for the next 2 snaps. You'll never have a fake injury again. Ever.
Oh, people tough it out.
You will have real injuries, and you'll still have to do it because that'll be the policy, right? But you'll never have a fake injury again.
I think the only thing I can think of is, like, what if there is, an obvious real injury?
If a dude is on a stretcher, if a dude, and I'm going to get gross for a minute, and I don't mean to, if a dude's bone is protruding from his leg, and we've seen that, sure, put somebody in for him.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and look,
punishing people for actually getting hurt.
Right.
It is technically, like you said, it's policy, but it's also like a punishment kind
of.
Well,
it's a deterrent for the feigning of injury.
Yes.
That's what they want, is a deterrent.
That's why I love the drive idea, the full drive. How many teams would choose? Because how many times, like, let's say it happened like 2 or 3 times in a drive against South Carolina in the Ole Miss game, right? Mm-hmm. Would Pete Golding and Lane Kiffin really be cool with being down 3 starters for like a goal line possession?
No.
Wouldn't do it. They absolutely wouldn't do it. And then we did get one text on the text line that I thought was interesting. Nameless texter says, here's the caveat. Coach subs in a 3rd stringer to fake injury for 1 play. Here's the caveat to your caveat. The coach has to play the 3rd stringer. And if they're not any good at football, that can be exploited pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I think it wouldn't be very wise to throw out a 3rd stringer just to fake an injury, especially at, like, I don't know, cornerback, right? Where you can get burned down the field. Like an opposing offensive coach can say, oh, there's a 3rd string corner or a 3rd string defensive lineman. Let's run the ball to this side or throw to that player. I think the risk of getting burned on that is probably greater than,
and that's why I say,
advantage you gain for them faking an injury.
In soccer, it's it's referee discretion, but that's why I say, if you want a real deterrent, hey, player gets hurt, player goes down, all right, 2 snaps. You're playing with 10. Again, you'll never have a fake injury again. And then 3rd team, 4th team, 1st team, 2nd team, what team? Don't care. This is the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Final few minutes of our second hour coming up. Top of the 5 headlines of the day. You drive around the SEC in our final hour as well. And, man, I probably should have talked about this during the commercial break with my co-host / producer here, and I didn't. But maybe we should re-rack a little of what John Whittle had to say, some of the sage wisdom of John Whittle, who joined us for the first time since before football season.
Always a good option.
If not,
He's a wise man.
Yeah, we'll just tell you some of the things John had to say in our Gamecock segment coming up around 5:15. But we'll have all of that for you in just a little bit. So we like to talk about a lot of things beyond sports here on the program. And I'm going to tell y'all that last night, Elijah knows what I had for dinner last night. But last night, my wife and I made about 1.5 pound venison backstrap steak. It's a roast, really.
Yeah.
And those of you who are deer hunters, or at least if you enjoy venison, if you didn't go out and get it, my father-in-law is an avid outdoorsman, and he's bagged 2 bucks this year. And so I probably do. I'm not too far from exaggerating when I tell you that in terms of the meat currently in my freezer from my father-in-law, close to half a deer.
That's a lot of meat.
I got a lot of venison in my freezer right now. I got backstraps. I got a ton of burger. I got a ton of sausage. I've already made burgers. I've already made sausage for breakfast a couple of days. He's got a guy down in Socastee, and he was all excited a couple of years ago. He's like, I got a new guy. He's so good at it, and he's not wrong. The guy's great. But the backstrap, I about 12 o'clock yesterday, pulled it out. I let it thaw, obviously. But yesterday, put a dry rub on it and just let it sit all afternoon. And I was too lazy to go outside and put it on the grill. So I did the sear. So I did like a 1-minute sear, both sides, and then oven 375 in the cast iron skillet. I kept it in the cast iron skillet.
Smart.
And put it in maybe 7 or 8 minutes. Perfect.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
And I hadn't had, because last time, I'm kidding when I say this in case this gets back to him. Last year, I didn't get any of the backstraps. But since he got 2 this year, we got some. Because I think maybe.
Which is the best part of it, in my opinion.
There's a tenderloin and there's a backstrap, and they're both very tender cuts of meat. And again, those of you who are so inclined to know what I'm talking about. But if not, it's such a tender cut, and it's so good. But I was pretty, and I had some for lunch today too. Had a couple of slices left over. Made some mustard mashed potatoes to go with it. It was really good, man.
Now you're talking.
It's really good. But one thing I've done, and I was telling you guys, you take venison. Now he sends me. Everything's a little bit bigger than a pound in all these packages that this guy does, right? So
I've made you up a little bit.
I've made meatloaf with like 1 package of the venison burger and 1 package of the venison sausage, and then you put all your meatloaf ingredients, your breadcrumbs or ketchup or whatever you want, however you like to make it, and that'll make like 2 big meatloaf, man. It's great.
Oh, that's fantastic. I haven't had venison in a long time.
Big fan. Yeah, I'll say you grew up out in the wilds of Tennessee. I imagine that was pretty much a staple, right?
Very prevalent. And of course, mostly a beef family. My grandfather is a cattle farmer, and we lived on his cattle farm. So we had pretty good access to good meat. So we would do venison occasionally.
Well,
but
you're the exception to the rule in that respect.
Exactly. Yeah. No, like some of the best weekends when I was in college in Murfreesboro, my dad would make like the 2-hour drive to get dinner with me, my brother, and my sister, and we would, we'd hang out for a little bit, and afterwards he'd always go back to his truck and say, "Oh yeah, I got y'all some beef for this week," and then it's just a large cooler full.
That's what they brought me, man. And I was like, "Oh, this thing's heavy."
That would fill up our freezer, and we would have beef, steaks, some hamburgers as well, all different types of cuts, and that would last us a while. It was those are the days, man. My dad can't drive that to me now. It's like a 6-hour drive, but
just put it in a box with some dry ice, man.
And maybe next time he visits, I'd have to see if I can bug him to do that.
Give me his number. I'll bug the heck out of him.
You'll bug him. It's good too, man. It's good. We had a hookup for a long time.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's
a really
not
good
bad.
hookup.
But I do appreciate my father-in-law being there. I don't hunt anymore. I went a bunch when I was younger, but I mean, working weekends the way I did, and some buddies of mine have said, I'm like, y'all, when it's main hunting season, I can't really go. So, but I appreciate the fact that there are others in my life who do. So, good stuff. But I was really,
when they hook you up, it's a good feeling.
well, it was, man. That was like a nice Christmas present. But they brought a big old Yeti cooler, and I was like,
oh yes,
I was like a bottomless cooler here. But I do. I have a bunch of meat in the freezer.
I'm drooling.
Right. Headlines of the day, more on the Gamecocks drive around the SEC. We'll update the poll question as well on that 1980s Gamecock football uniform, at least the George Rogers uniform, I like to call it. So we'll do that for you, too. All coming up. Final hour of the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell. Keep it here. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union ready to help everybody out when it comes to doing banking better than ever and keeping more of your money in your accounts. How do they do that, you might ask? Well, listen, they're not for profit, so they return earnings back to members in the forms of lower rates and fewer fees when you're doing checking, savings, credit cards, car loans, student loans, home loans, equity lines of credit, money for any reason. They can do it for you just like the big banks. And they've been in business here in the Midlands for more than 85 years. So they know your neighbors, your neighborhood. When they loan money, it's to local businesses. They don't loan out of state or to people you've never heard of. They're doing everything they can to continue to grow everything across our region. So check them out online for any and all of your banking needs. Join my wife and me as members. Check them out at palmettocitizens.org or visit any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. Palmetto Citizens.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways, starting with one on Clemson Road at I-20, Forest Drive at I-77, Hardin Street near Highway 12 and Taylor Street, Highway 1 at Augusta Road at Pisgah Church Road, Highway 6 near Pilgrim Church Road, I-20 eastbound over at US 1 near Exit 58, Lady Street near Marion Street, Laurel Street at Main Street, Salem Road near Margaret Road, US 321 near Coon Store Road, and lastly one on Woodrow Street near Wheat Street.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Also, the final hour of the postgame show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Let's jump right in. Really good news for South Carolina football. Sumter native and NC State transfer defensive back Brandon Cisse is coming back to Columbia. He is the number 9 corner in the transfer portal, committing to South Carolina yesterday. A 6-foot, 182-pounder, played 2 years at State, played 22 games, started this past season, has 2 years of eligibility remaining in his games this year, 28 tackles and 5 pass breakups. Elijah, this is more your realm than mine, but our good buddy Wes Mitchell says his Pro Football Focus grade of 69.8 as a freshman and 73 as a sophomore this year are both very good numbers. Wes says he's been a better tackler than most defensive backs, just 1 missed tackle this season, and a tackling grade from PFF of 84.3. 14 receptions, 27 targets for 175 yards. So proven himself to be a very good football player. And with some further development here at Carolina and getting into the SEC, we'll see what happens. But Brandon Cisse is coming in. This is a good pickup.
It is. I mean, between him and Miles Norwood, I mean, you have built yourself a pretty good secondary through the portal right now. And Judge Collier coming back, a couple other guys coming back. Vicari Swain coming back. I mean, you got a lot of guys that are productive college football players. We looked at last year, you know, the front end of the defense being the strength and then the back end supplementing it really well throughout the season. Who knows? Maybe you come into next year, maybe having one of the better secondaries in the SEC off the bat, the same way you did defensive line units.
Right. Our buddy John Whittle joined us earlier and says that at least from the 24/7 rankings, South Carolina is now 12th in transfer portal rank in the country. So a very solid offseason for Shane Beamer and the crew from portal recruiting. And again, pretty much winding down. I suppose there could be a little bit more activity. But again, this is day 2 of classes at South Carolina. So really by the end of the week, you pretty much need to be enrolled in school.
Which means roster-wise, you have what you have.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And again,
spring at least.
We've had some news on transfer portal, and we'll get that to you again right now. Today up in Charlotte, in a unanimous vote that, again, is nothing more than a proposal, a recommendation, as I mentioned earlier, a finger crossing and a hope. The American Football Coaches Association voted today on a proposal that would move the transfer portal in football to January 2nd and have it end January 12th. And that would be it for football transfers, period. Now, again, this is nothing more than a proposal. I'm not a lawyer. Not that lawyers matter too much in this one, but we did go over something from Mitt Winter, who is an NIL and college sports attorney. A real one, that's right, who says, in his legal opinion, doesn't see this as being able to stand on its own. In fact, he even mentioned that somewhere now, after this proposal did pass in Charlotte, and he was joking when he says, right now, there is a plaintiff's attorney drawing up a draft of a lawsuit. Because, again, players had no say. in this. And if this were to pass as is at the NCAA level, players would have no say. And this is a restrictive move. And why is the NCAA in so much trouble? A lot of their lawsuits, especially the ones they're losing in a bad way, it's because they are restricting the rights of free Americans. And those of you that listen to this program routinely have heard me say it. If you've never listened to me before, one of the buzz phrases that I've been using a lot the last 6 or 8 months, if not longer, is that in the United States of America, you cannot restrict the rights of free American adults without their consent. It's that simple. You might want to, but you can't.
You know what I love about this show, Jay Phillips?
Tell me.
Is that I think we have done as much for educating people on the Sherman Antitrust Act than I think I ever got when it comes to school. I think I have gotten to educate myself more on the Sherman Antitrust Act just by preparing for our shows and doing what we do for a living.
It's good.
Than I ever did when I was in school. I get it now.
Yeah.
I wish I could take my now, almost 30-year-old brain and put it in my middle school brain and apply that a little bit. I would have done better in school. Who knows where I could have gone from there.
If you knew now what you didn't know then.
Exactly. But you know what? I think if you just listen to this show enough, you will have a level of understanding of the Sherman Antitrust Act as it relates to sports, where if you're still in school, you're a kid listening to this right now, you take some notes.
Yeah. Not to be confused with a line from a Bob Seger song where he says, I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then.
That's a lot of negatives.
Yeah, that's a whole different.
My mother would scold me for
that's a whole different concept for the things that Bob was singing about at that time. Listen, in theory, in all seriousness, I get it, and it does need to be cleaned up. I have put forth my own proposal that follows along with what Scott Dockerman of The Athletic said, and that's move all of this, spring football and the portal, to the end of the spring semester. Have it open for 3 weeks or so, have spring ball after that, early June into mid-June. And everybody gets a little time off. Most of the kids are on campus anyway because most football players take 12 hours each semester, and then they'll take a couple of classes in summer to fill out the 15 hours, or 30 hours a year kind of a thing. That's not universal, obviously. But again, in theory, I get where the coaches are coming from, and they do need it to be cleaned up for their own purposes, to do the portal, to do high school recruiting for the majority of FBS schools, to do bowl prep, and even for FCS, 24 of them are in the playoffs. I get it. It's crazy. It is. But this is the mess that's been created, and there are ways to clean it up. This one, I believe, will not on its own fly. But we'll find out. And even if the NCAA Division I Council gave it final approval later this year, is it going to withstand a legal challenge? Do they need to go into something where there's going to be another legal challenge? I have put forth this as well, y'all. It is time for leadership of NCAA schools. They are the ones. We can sit here and say the leadership of the NCAA. The NCAA is the members. It's time for them to begin to look at how to collectively bargain. And what that might look like if kids aren't employees, I'm not sure. That's why there's a bunch of people that make a lot of money doing a lot of things that are above our pay grades. But it is going to be time soon enough here to find ways to have this in some form or fashion collectively bargained. And then you won't get sued.
That's the only elixir here.
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes.
The only fix.
There was also a proposal today from the AFCA to, or at least a discussion today. I'm not sure they got as far with a proposal to try and curb fake illnesses or injuries, but fake injuries in college football by forcing the player that needs treatment to miss the rest of that specific drive. So whether you went down on play 1 or play 10 or whatever, you'd miss the rest of the drive. Would that be a deterrent? I have also put forth my own on that one to say, you know what, do what soccer does. You can come out for a minute, but you're playing with 10. You'll never have a fake injury again.
That one's bold.
Yeah, 2 snaps where you're playing with 10. You'll never have a fake injury again, ever, if that were the deterrent.
I just
They
don't
will not-
love the punishment of a real injury.
They will not adopt that. But if you wanted to make it go away forever, the fake part, that's what you would do. 2 snaps, 10 players. Never have another fake injury. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Real injuries, though.
Yeah.
That would be a bummer
That
to
would
lose
be the hard
your
part.
number one corner on a play on a legitimate ankle
it
roll or
would.
something, and then
But what are we worried about?
Is able to come back
now
in.
again? Am I really advocating for that? No, I'm just saying. You want to stop it. You want to stop targeting? When your kid gets ejected, do the same thing. When you get a red card in soccer, what happens? You're playing with 10 because you got kicked out. You don't get to sub back in. You want to stop targeting in football? When that kid gets kicked out in football, you don't get to replace him. You're playing with 10. Now, it's going to still happen, but it won't happen as much. And it'll really force the development of people to go, oh, I can't go doing that.
Be on a power play.
Do it. Don't do it.
So they call it power play in hockey.
Yeah. So, yeah. It doesn't end it, does it? But if you didn't have power plays, you wouldn't have anything but dudes knocking each other out in
That's
hockey.
true. the penalty for committing, or the punishment for committing a penalty.
Well, and the 5-minute
Hockey's pretty
major,
hard.
I mean, that's a big deal, man. The 5-minute major is a big deal.
Especially since it doesn't end when you score.
Right.
Like,
See, yeah,
I mean,
a
you
power
can-
play,
you
you
can
score
pi-
right,
you can
on the 2-minute, yeah.
Pile on.
Right. But a 5-minute major, you could score 10 seconds in after that first faceoff. And that dude's still in the box for another 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So it helps. It helps. Anyway, all right. So we'll keep
Great
an eye.
sport.
We'll keep an eye on that for you. To the NFL we go. The divisional round is now set. This after last night's Rams win over the Vikings. That game, originally scheduled, of course, for L.A., had to be moved to Phoenix because of the wildfires. But the Rams used some early miscues by Sam Darnold and the Vikings to build a 24-3 halftime lead. And by the fourth quarter, this game was just a slog. Remember that stretch in the fourth quarter where the Rams had like 5 penalties on 6 snaps? I'm like, what are y'all doing, man?
Oh, and they went from being like past the 50 to like on their own 30.
It was like 1st and 31 all of a sudden. Like, what are y'all doing? I was like, you got your kids out there playing?
Honestly, it was like the most watchable part of that second half. The Vikings were a no-show.
Well, that's when Joe and Troy said, Joe said something like, the Vikings do know they might need to move the ball, right? Like he said it real. And Troy was like, I don't think they do, Joe. I can't remember. It was something like that, you know?
Because there's no urgency.
No, there
They're
was
just letting
none.
it
It was-
tick and tick.
it was
and they're
actually
still running the ball. It
It's kind of surreal.
was odd. It felt like they gave up.
Yeah,
After
but
a while.
the divisional round looks like this. Saturday, 4:30, Texans at Chiefs. The night game Saturday is Commanders at Lions. Sunday, Rams at Eagles at the 3 o'clock game. And then Sunday night, Ravens at Bills. Man, that game. We have a weather forecast for that one yet?
For Ravens Bills. Cold. How about that?
Kickoff
Cold.
temperature today, at least what they say. Kickoff temperature 21
Cold.
and no sun by then.
Frigid.
Oof.
Can Lamar play in a jacket?
He'll play in something. It's gonna be cold, man. Cold. All right, there you go. That's our integrated media headlines of the day. 803-948-8327 for all your home theater needs and so much more, including how you watch football better than ever. Do it with integrated media. We'll talk more Gamecocks on the other side as you listen to the Postgame Show. 18 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. Jump on the phones in just a second here. Before that, I want to remind you about our poll question that's going to run for a couple of days here. Actually, 3 days. That's more than a couple. It's some.
That is. It's a couple and one.
Yep. As we look ahead to the 2025 Gamecocks football season, how often would you like to see the 1980-style uniforms worn? These were fantastic throwbacks that we saw in the Akron game, and then the helmet was worn a few times. They didn't bring the jersey back the rest of the time, did they?
They did against Wofford. So the home games that they wore the entire game was Akron and Wofford. Sure. Which, if you want to create good mojo by wearing the uniforms, you do it against teams that you're going to beat by 50. That way you can say, hey, it's good luck. We won the games. We're 2-0 in the full get-up. And that is a fact.
Yeah, they did have it against Wofford, didn't they? I forgot about that.
I don't forget. I don't forget those jerseys. No, sir.
A, every game. B, 3 to 5 games, which, again, you don't have to take hard and fast. It was just sort of some.
Keeping it in a rotation with your others.
C, once a season. D, never again. Right now, once a season, 45.8. 3 to 5 games, 31.3. This is percentages. 20.6 every game. 2.3% of respondents say never again. And Elijah and I believe those people to be non-Gamecock fans.
Or anti-fun.
Yeah.
Because you can be an anti-fun person and a Gamecock fan at the same time. But I would like to say that number is very small. It's not zero, but I think it's very small. You guys are fun. Yeah, everyone that interacts with us.
I've met a couple in my life as a lifer of these parts and an alum of the University of South Carolina. I've met a couple of what I would personally deem unfun Gamecock fans.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens.
It exists everywhere.
When that's who you interact with.
Where you have people, you have anti-fun, anti-funners.
I'm like, man, why you want to be so unfun?
Can't imagine living that way.
Sports.
Life is too short.
Yeah, sports.
To not have fun. Way too short.
So hit us up. We'll be running this for a few days. And I have not yet given my opinion publicly on this. Although I will tell you this. It is not never again.
Keys on our Firehouse sub text line texted in, said A all the time. I love it. I love that spirit.
Yeah. It's a good look, man. It's a good look.
I will say every time I play with South Carolina on the video game now, that's the look we're rocking. That's it. It's the best one.
So I could be leaning that way. Who was that?
That was Keys.
Yeah, I could. I don't want to say yet. I could be leaning that way.
Yeah, it's close. See, I love their other uniform combinations to where I can't just go all the time. Right. I need some variety. Right. I love the garnet helmet with the white circle and the block C,
which is kind of a throwback.
It's kind of a throwback in itself, like a 90s one, right?
84.
Like 84.
80, I guess actually that debuted in 83.
Okay.
Coach Morrison's
and they
first
rocked
year.
That for well over a decade.
Long time.
I love it. I think that's a great look. And I love the white helmet with the block C on it.
Yeah.
I love the black helmets.
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of the black.
Oh, I love it.
I don't hate it.
Great.
I don't hate it.
I love it for a big-time night game, too.
I just don't like it that much.
That's like lower on your tier.
Of the 3 helmets, it's third.
Okay. Fair enough.
So there's that. I won't say on the 3 helmets it's fourth, because then that's not factually possible. But of the 3 helmets, it's third. And it could be distant between the white and garnet. And even if you don't want to wear the full-on look of the 1980-style uniform, that helmet is just...
The Star does a lot of heavy lifting. You wouldn't think it would do a lot of heavy lifting. It's just a small change, small addition.
It's good.
But, buddy, it's beautiful.
It's good. Let's see what Cale has to say. He's up next here on the program. Hey, Cale, good afternoon, sir.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Doing well. Hope you are.
I'm doing pretty good. So I wanted to just call in and, talk to you guys about the new defensive coordinator hire for Clemson today, with it being Tom Allen from Penn State, whether you're a Clemson fan or a Clemson hater or whether you don't have any feelings towards Clemson at all. I don't think it's any argument that it's a pretty big upgrade with the fact that he led the Penn State defense top 10 nationally, and total defense, which they were 7th in, scoring defense, which they were 8th in, and rushing defense, which they were 9th in. So, and I kind of was just wondering if you guys think a lot of Penn State players are going to enter the portal on their defense and transfer to Clemson, because I did see yesterday Penn State safety. It was his name was, I forgot what his name was. Oh, Tyrese Mills planned to enter the portal. That was released about 5 hours ago or last night. So I just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. Good questions all the way around. This is a fantastic hire, and I yesterday on Twitter, I don't think I got anybody to I think most people saw where I was coming from when I said why, and it wasn't like, why would you go to Clemson? It's not that at all. It was, why are you leaving Penn State
after making the run?
I mean,
you did.
and you just lost by 3 in a great game. You do have, as Cale pointed out, statistically one of the better defenses in the nation. There is a piece at The Athletic today that outlines, Cale, to your one of your points, but it sort of counters it. A bunch of dudes are staying. I think they're doing a pretty good job with retention for those who can. Now, again, if you could clone Abdul Carter, it'd be fantastic. And again, Mike,
that would solve the problems for a lot of teams.
What a performance the other night, man. I know they lost, but my goodness. I swear it felt like every play he was the guy making the stop.
I love the Mina Kimes tweet where she's like, he passes the Martian test, which is where if a Martian came into the stadium, has no idea what football is, and can identify who the best player is, they pass the Martian test. Yeah. And I think Abdul Carter passed the Martian test.
It was brilliant. We asked Langston, we're like, hey, as a defensive lineman yourself, do you shed little tears of joy to just see someone who's working on one arm
still get to the quarterback at will,
make plays like
at
that?
Will.
It was, and if I may real quick, then I'll come back around, Cale, and I promise I'll answer your question. Tennessee Titans, number 1 pick, right?
Yep.
Abdul Carter.
If you don't trade it for Dak Prescott.
Just go get Abdul Carter.
Oh, you're saying
just go get
forget
him.
all that.
Just it matters so much. Go get him. It does. Just go get him.
It does. An elite edge rusher would help them a lot.
Just do it.
So you already got one of the better interior defensive linemen.
Just go get Abdul Carter because if you don't, I'm not saying he'll make you pay. We hear that a lot, but if you don't, someone else is going to get him. Duh. But is there a quarterback that is better at quarterbacking than Abdul Carter is at stopping quarterbacks or getting to quarterbacks in this draft? No.
Not in this draft.
And that's what this draft is.
In terms of who you can trade for, though.
Now, I might still say, you're right. Before I go too far with that point, I still think I might trade that pick if I can get a boatload for it.
Yes. And
I know
there's one team, in the course, the Dallas Cowboys, if they were to hire Adrian Sanders, that you have all the bargaining power in the world. But also something I just thought of, the Browns having the number 2 pick. Let's say the Titans either take a quarterback or trade the pick so whoever gets the number 1 pick can take Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter.
Right.
The Browns pick 2nd. Could you imagine the Browns taking Abdul Carter and having Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett on the same defense?
That would instantly change the fortunes of the Cleveland Browns.
And it's like they don't really have a quarterback.
No,
because Deshaun Watson definitely ain't playing this.
But you need to go get after Lamar and Burrow 4 times a year. I don't know who Pittsburgh's going to have, but if you have Garrett and Carter going after Lamar and Joe 4 times a year, that helps.
One of the best. That would be an elite pass rush duo.
Because those are certainly 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and they're in your division. So that would.
And you have to terrorize them. And I think that would do a decent job.
But no, Cale, to your point, and one of the things that as more came out about why Tom Allen may be moving, we found out that his children. All I saw was the Carolinas. I'm not sure if they live in Raleigh or Charlotte or Asheville or Charleston or Myrtle Beach or here. I don't know where they live in the Carolinas. But that his son is also going to be hired as an analyst. He is currently an analyst at Penn State with his dad, so he's just going to come on down. And I guess he's got a daughter or some grandkids and some things that are down here somewhere around, and that he aligns philosophically with a lot of what Dabo wants to do. I asked somewhat rhetorically of Elijah yesterday, is this a James Franklin problem? I don't know. I mean, do guys want to work with James? Because James talked a lot about wanting to have a lot of stability on the staff, and yet he's lost. He'll be on his 4th defensive coordinator in 5 years.
And how many of those guys are taking better jobs?
Well, some of them. A couple of them went to be head
Manny
coaches,
Diaz
right? Yeah,
went to go be a head coach.
So there's some of that.
But
I think it's a fine hire for Clemson. Obviously.
Oh yeah, I think they knocked it out.
Yeah. I don't know what he's going to make, but I imagine he's going to be one of the higher paid coordinators in college football.
With a defensive mind like his and a resume that he has, if you're a Clemson fan, you should be excited.
Yeah, I think so.
Thrilled through the roof.
All right, come back on the other side, drive around the SEC, get you ready for tonight's basketball, and we'll talk a little Carolina baseball in the drive around the SEC as well. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to, they're causing some issues on the roadways. I'm trying to get to all of these here in the allotted time because there's a lot of them. Starting at Bush River Road near I-26, Clemson Road at I-20, Fontaine Road near Highway 555 at Farrow Road, Hardin Street near Highway 12 and Taylor Street, 1 on 20 eastbound at US 1 near exit 58, 1 on 26 eastbound at Lake Murray Boulevard near exit 102, Lady Street near Marion Street, Mount Vernon Church Road at Dutch Fork Road, Old Cherokee Road between Rollingwood Drive and Old Chapin Road, US 321 near Coon Store Road, and lastly one on US 378 near Priceville Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time here on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Only 3 games tonight in SEC men's basketball, but we got 3, as the kids would say, bangers, in my personal opinion.
They are bangers.
All of them are at 7, too. Like, they usually do at least the 7 and 9, and you got 2 of these games tipping off in the Central Time Zone.
Which would be perfect for a 9 Eastern tip.
Yeah, I don't. This is why people. Well, never mind. Anyway, tonight we have Auburn hosting Mississippi State.
First game without Janai Broome. That's a big test.
It is, and look, that's absolutely going to alter what they do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take the best player on a team and go, no, it's not that big a deal.
No.
I mean, at least not him. I mean, this is a guy, we talked about it when we were previewing Carolina-Auburn on Friday. You think a big, leads your team in scoring and rebounding. No big deal there, right? I mean, that happens all the time.
A team's best big sometimes does that.
Yeah. He leads the team in assists. And not just that, he gets like 3.5 a game.
He's a
distributor.
Passer.
And what I love about bigs like him, I honestly, it's the distribution that could be as impactful a miss, because you can find, dude, they'll score.
And they'll rebound.
Because
they're athletic as hell.
And they'll defend. But what I like about a big that can distribute is that it's different from a 1 or a 2 that distributes, because the ball, he must touch the ball. But he is so adept at finding the open man on the perimeter. And I know this is way up your alley more than it is mine even, but when I watch him play, I love to see bigs do that. I used to love watching Tim Duncan redistribute the basketball, the big fundamental, right? Get the ball in. He did it at Wake as well. Get the ball into him. Some bigs, they're just going to turn and shoot. And that's cool, But when you've got a guy who has that kind of court awareness, it changes so many things about how you are being defended. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it really could be. And when I say distribute, not just his assist numbers, which again are about 3.5 a game, but that also just means, again, just passing the ball, moving the basketball. And Bruce Pearl is such a proponent of moving the basketball. They don't sit still at Auburn. It's constant movement and things like that. So it will be a big miss, but I think it might be some of those kind of things that actually provide Bruce Pearl with the opportunity to develop some of that skill in other guys. And Broome will be back. Again, he's out probably close to a month, it feels like now. And now they've had a few more days to assess it. Again, the early word was he'll be out at least 2 weeks. But it's going to – I think you were right on yesterday's show. First week of February-ish.
And it helps them, too, that they have an entire off week in late January.
Right.
So that's a whole week where everybody's off. The whole team gets to rest up, and that buys you more time to not have to play as many games with them. But you hit the nail on the head with that in terms of what makes Janai Broome valuable right? I mean, he's a phenomenal passer. And what makes that so hard to guard, man, is that not every team that you play against, you're having to have your center. Sometimes with some centers in the league and in college basketball in general, some of them do have cinder blocks for feet, and it's hard to guard. It's hard to stay in front of laterally. That's why it's such a matchup problem. Like, those big men are not accustomed to guarding on the perimeter. That's why every team that Michigan plays this year is put in a torture chamber because they have a 7'1" giraffe who can handle the ball, shoot almost 40% from three, and is the team's best passer.
Yeah.
It unlocks a whole lot of your offense. And if you have that on your team, it completely changes how you can run it.
Yeah, it just opens up so much more. So it will be, and I'll be curious because again, we've
how do you adapt?
Those of you who are Gamecock fans and watched, if you suffered through, I should say, that game in Starkville last week, then you know what we're talking about. But State is really athletic. They're long. They're quick. This will be. I'm looking forward to this one tonight. At the same time, as we said, Alabama hosts Mississippi. Saw a little bit from Chris Beard earlier today about how he feels about his team. They, like Alabama, are sitting at 3-0. So is Auburn. I'm not sure where you fall on the spectrum of Ole Miss at this point in time in terms of belief in what they can really be relative to Bama, Auburn, Tennessee in the SEC. I think tonight tells us a lot when they go to Tuscaloosa. Bama's a heavy favorite in this game. So that tells me something. And let me go look real fast what the BPI says. I might even get an EBPI from you. Oh, my.
I got thoughts.
Oh, my. The BPI, let's call it 79% to 21%. You feeling about that same?
I would say 85. 15.
Okay, so you're even stronger.
I'm not a massive believer in Ole Miss. Like, the Georgia win looks better every day. The Arkansas win doesn't look as good because they're incredibly dysfunctional. And LSU is definitely one of the bottom three teams in the league. Yeah. This is the biggest test they have, in terms of conference play. And they played well against other really good teams. They defend really well. I don't know if they're going to be able to score with Alabama, given how much rim protection Alabama has. I like Malik Dia. I think that was one of the more underrated transfer portal pickups. A guy from Belmont over in Nashville, another one of those stretch fours, fives. Kind of. I mean, he's at 6'9", so he's kind of a tweener, but he was an elite shooter at Belmont. Hadn't shot the ball very well from the outside this year, but he's a really good passer, efficient playmaker off the bounce. It gives them a different look, and they got a couple of guys who can be explosive offensively. I mean, Matthew Morrell's a guy who can pop off for 25 any given night. We've seen the same thing from guys like Jamin Brakefield, but I still look at Ole Miss as a middle-tier SEC team, which means a lot more this year than it has in the past. Yeah. But this, to me, is I'll believe it when I see it game for Ole Miss.
Tonight as well at 7 o'clock up in Lexington, Kentucky, hosting Texas A&M. Winner feels really good about themselves. Loser doesn't feel terrible, but if Kentucky is the loser, they'll feel worse than A&M will at this point in time. But both teams 2-1. So this is one of those, to go to your point even about, the middle of the pack. I know there's plenty of games left, but a team that goes to 2-2 here is suddenly beginning to fight to get out of that middle portion of the conference.
Absolutely. And it's a tough one to climb, especially if you were a team like Kentucky. You don't want to drop those ones at home. But for anybody who just loves basketball, what makes college basketball, in my opinion, a better product than the NBA is you can have two teams play against each other. And when they don't play against each other, it's like they're playing different sports, right? You watch Kentucky play offense, and it is beautiful, orchestrated, great cuts, great movement, five guys moving as one. It is the perfect team basketball. Aesthetically, it is as pleasing as it gets. And then Texas A&M and Alabama played a game on Saturday where both the teams shot a combined 88 free throws.
Yeah.
And they absolutely beat the hell out of each other on the glass. Yeah. It is an absolute brawl when Texas A&M plays, and they will out-tough you in every single game. It's hard to watch those two teams at different times and be like, I'm watching the same sport. It's even better when you get those two teams on the floor at the same time. So if you're one of morbid curiosity of just play style and the variance of play style in the world of college basketball, buddy, this is the game for you.
So, again, that one's tonight. BPI on that one's about a 60-40 in favor of the Wildcats.
I want to go 55.
Okay.
I'm going to be a little lower because Texas A&M will travel well because of just how physical they are. I think they're going to try to take a page out of the Florida book. Now, Florida gave up 106 to them.
Yeah.
But they were very physical with them, and I think A&M looks at that and can say, we can do that better.
There are 2 9:00 tips tonight, but they're not of any consequence, in my opinion, because Florida's going to beat the hell out of Missouri, and that's at 9 in Gainesville, which, again, is in the Eastern time zone. Why?
This doesn't make sense.
And then LSU and Arkansas. Good news in the LSU-Arkansas game, Elijah Campbell. One of those teams will get their first conference win of the year. They're both 0-3.
Part of me really hopes it's LSU to see exactly how Arkansas fans handle going 0-4 in conference play with John Calipari.
Arkansas is a 1.5-point favorite.
The man has learned nothing.
There are minus money lines on both teams, minus 115 for Arkansas, minus 105 for LSU.
It's a damning indictment.
It is, actually. And LSU is a better than 58% has a better than 58% chance to win on the BPI.
Damning.
So there you go.
Brutal.
But again, why put one of the Bama or Auburn game at home in the 9:00 window, 8:00 local?
If they cared about us.
Yeah. That's the drive around the SEC. Updated poll results and a question on the poll coming up. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show here on this Tuesday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Having some fun today with our football uniform poll question as we look ahead to the 2025 Gamecock football season. How often would you like to see the 1980-style uniforms worn? Carolina had these against Akron, and Wofford wore the helmet on occasions beyond those games, but I guess the full-on look in those two, A, every game, B, 3 to 5 games, which again I've just equated to just some of the time.
Yeah,
a good chunk of the season.
Part of the rotation.
C, once a season. D, never again. I am happy to say that never again is now down to 2.2%. So that's good. But 45.5 say once a season, 30.6% 3 to 5 games, 21.6 every game. Chris hit us, says for the once a season folks, what combo do you prefer? And then we was it Alan?
Oh.
Alan
our
hit
no
us.
Fun guy of the day.
Yeah. See, we did find the non-fun guy.
Yep.
Alan.
Always is.
Alan said, I'm just paraphrasing, but he said, how often do Penn State and Alabama talk about uniform combos? Alan, they don't, because they have the same one. And quite honestly, if I may, Alan, if Carolina were still wearing this, from the Jim Carlin era until today and had never done anything else, I'd be good with it.
Mm-hmm.
Alan, do you want to go resurrect Coach Joe and ask him why he changed the uniform? We can find a way to conjure him up, I suppose. There's a witch doctor out there somewhere.
I've been to New Orleans before. I know where they exist.
And by the way, Penn State did change their look. How about that? When they played SMU, I was like, whoa, they put numbers on the helmets. They went like Alabama.
I hate also this, it's a sports talk / sports discussion pet peeve of mine, where someone's like, oh, you lost because you're too busy focusing on your uniform.
Yeah, no.
That's like a 30-second decision.
I
don't think they were sitting in meeting rooms being like, guys, we could really talk about how the opposing pass rush is going to get to our quarterback and different protections we need to use to protect, Lenoris. And, man, I really don't know how we're going to guard those receivers. But let's table that for tomorrow. What are we wearing?
Right.
Guys, we got 2 hours here in the meeting. I think we're going to have to use all 120 minutes to decide what we're wearing. That does not happen. Right?
Look, I
does not exist.
if you'd rather see them wear one thing all the time, I get it. Some schools are like that. Some schools aren't. Even Georgia wore a black jersey a couple times recently.
Yep, they have.
Clemson pulls out that purple one from time. Clemson even has those purple pants, man.
Yeah, I kind of like the look. Georgia brought out the black jerseys in the early 2000s against Alabama and got beat by 30. And is it because they were too busy focusing on jerseys?
No, I think probably not.
No.
Probably not.
Both teams could have played naked and they'd still get beat like that.
I remember in 83, I probably told this before. I'm sure I have. But I remember in 83, Coach Morrison's first year, Carolina hosting Clemson. And the rumor was that they were going to wear all black against Clemson. And, again, in an age of no social media, no internet, all that, it was just like chatter in the community, right? And so back then, I was like 12 or 13. So my buddies and I would get, we'd get there like anybody else and tailgate or whatever. But like my buddies and I wanted to go in and watch like warm-ups. And so Carolina came out in like the regular, they were wearing the garnet helmet by then, that first year. But they were in like garnet and white, And I remember some of the grown-ups were like, see, we told y'all, you silly kids. They're not wearing all black, y'all. It was all, everybody fell for it. Ha 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 ha. And so they go back into the, down the tunnel, and then they come out to 2001, and guess what they're wearing, Elijah Campbell?
Yeah.
Now
the old switcheroo. I love it.
I will say that Clemson that day did win convincingly, and that kind of stunk.
I'd rather look good and get my ass kicked than look bad.
But they did come out in I say all black. They had the garnet hat, but they wore the black shirt and pants. And that was cool. It was fun. But in terms of Chris's question, what combo do you prefer of the newer look? I like. Again, I'm a big fan of white, garnet, white, but I'll take garnet, white. That'd probably be my second choice.
Ooh, with the script helmet on the garnet.
Maybe. That one wasn't so bad.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah, we'll discuss more of these things and other stuff on tomorrow's program. Thanks, John Whittle, for being with us. Y'all have a great night. See you tomorrow.
And, of course, we can't end the program if I don't tell you about my favorite way to add a little bit of spice to some of this playoff football action, whether it be pro football action in the playoffs, college football playoff. It's been made interesting all season long because of my friends over at Prize Picks. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and it's your boy's favorite daily fantasy sports app. And it's really simple. Just download the app. All you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, players from different teams, and you can possibly win up to 100 times your cash. Look, there are a lot of intriguing lineup opportunities here. I'm going to go less on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards of 250.5 because you know what? He doesn't have to throw for 1 billion yards for Kansas City to win games. And then I'm going to go more Josh Allen passing yards against Baltimore. That's a 239.5. Interesting stuff. Very fun. Download the app today. Use promo code 1075GAME. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.